Hello world and welcome to this tutorial. In this video I'll be discussing about looping. In programming generally, looping is our ability to write a code or a program that can instruct the computer to carry out a certain task over and over and over again. Ordinarily, human will not want to repeat the same task many times, but computers doesn't complain. They do it, and they do it even very well and at a very fast rate. In Python specifically, we are provided with two types of loops, majorly to write a program that can instruct our computer to perform the same task for us over and over again. We have the for loop and then the while loop in Python. So the for loop basically is a way we use, is the one that we use to execute a block of code for a known number of times. For example, I'll be explaining it from this code that I've written here. So this line says for n in range 5. Now, if you look at this if you study this very line very well, you see that it ends in colon. Now that means Python is expecting the next line of code to be indented in 4 places. Indentation is very important in Python, and it makes our code to work fine, and then so Python will not complain or will not throw an error. So this line is basically saying that you notice this range function. This range function, let me explain it a bit before we go on. The range function is a built-in function that enables us to actually be able to set some kind of indices or some kind of numbers from 1 to any known number that we specify. For example, in this case, we are saying that from 0, remember Python is a zero-based programming language. It starts it counting from 0. Now here this line of code is basically saying that Python should start from 0 and then write out some numbers from 0 to 4. The last number here specified will not be included. It will just be up to but not included in this not in this one. And then we now go ahead in the block of code to say it should print n. Of course, this n is a variable that is generated immediately we type this line of code, which stores temporarily each of the numbers that Python is going to print out for us using this range. That is, it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each of them will be temporarily be stored in this variable n and then be outputted or printed just as we instruct it here to do. And then finally, outside the block, it will then print done. That is when it has finished from 0 to 4. And then it will get out of the block and print done. So if I run this code, we're expecting to see 1 to 4. Let me run that and see. Yes, exactly. Sorry, 0 to 4, because Python is a zero-based programming language. It starts from 0 and then end at 4. And afterward, it then prints 0. It then prints done. So again, let me use another code again to explain this. For example, what if we want a range that starts from 0 to 7, and then along the line we want Python to be updating it before it prints the value. So for example, let me just simply copy this line and then edit some there to make it more interesting there. Now if I paste it here, we want it now this time around to be in range 7 as it is here like this. It will start from 0 and end at 6. Now let me run that before then. Now exactly 0 to 6. So what if we want Python we can actually specify any number we want to start from. By default, like I say, it starts from 0, but we can specify to the code to start at any number. For example, I want it to start at 2. Then the first parameter will be 2, then comma, followed by the next parameter, which is the stop, and then comma. If I want, I can put another comma here and then put another one, which is, let me say, 2. Now, this first 2 is the start and then the stop. That is, the counting will start from 2 instead of the default 0, and then end at 6, as you already know. Then, but what we want it to do is that when it starts from 2, it will increment or it will skip by 2 digits. That is, the frequency at which it goes, or the step at which it is going to be counting will be 2. That is, from 2 then the next 2 plus another 2 is 4, plus another 2 is 6. That is how we are going to see. So definitely we should be expecting it to start from 2 and then end at 6. Let's run that. Yes, exactly, correct. And we can equally specify it to be 1 or any number you wish to start from, 1 to 5. Now you may be thinking, why is it not up to 6 again? It's because of the way we have set it to be. If for example it starts from 1, it will be 2, 3, 4, 5. But now we say you should start from 1 and then increment it by 2. That's why we are seeing 1. The next one, 1 plus 2 will be 3, plus 2 will be 5, plus 2 will be 7. But then it is 7. It is the last number will always be 1 less than that number. That's why we are seeing only 5, and it cannot print 6 because that is not the step we instructed it to be. Now again, let me edit this code again to explain one more concept. For example, what if we want this to increment by adding some number? For example, okay, I'll delete this one out. You already know what it is from the previous line. Okay, now I'll say n plus, okay, let me say n equals n plus 1, n plus, okay, n plus 1. Yes, n plus 1. Now what this code will do is that once it starts from 1, it will add 1 to it first before it prints it. So what we are going to see now is that it's going to start from 2 instead of the 1, even if we specify it to start from 1 here. Let me run the code. You see, it starts from 2, then print the number n. This line will update whatever is first stored in this variable before it goes ahead to print the updated value. This very line says update the value first. Let me write that. Update the value of n, and then it is on the next line it will now print the value of the updated value of n. That is, print the updated value. This is what this line does. In this earlier on in this code, there's nothing like update there, but here that we have introduced this line, it makes sure it updates it before it prints it. Just calm down, watch the video, pause it, and type it in your code editor and try to think what is really happening behind the scene. Now we have seen this. If I decide to put this line below, let me delete it from here and then paste it here. I'll paste it in this place. Now this line has come even before the line that prints, just immediately after the line. Let me delete this one. Good. Just immediately after the line that prints it. Now what is the output going to be like? Let me run it and explain that from there. Good. It starts from 1, 3, and 5, which is different from what we did earlier that has to start from 2. It is because we are asking it to print first before it updates its value. After it updates the value, it is now the value now that it will take before it goes to another round of iteration. Then now come to print this n again. That means it will start from 1 as we instruct it to be, then print that 1, which is this line, then update 1, which is 1 plus 1 now will be 2. Instead of it to print 2, we are saying it should increment it by the step by 2, and thus after 1 we have 3. That is 1 plus 2 is 3, which it will now print it first before it updates it to the next figure, which is to the next number, which is 5, and then now goes on to check the step again before it prints this line. Just play around with it and you get the understanding of what is actually happening. Now this is just a simple way of using the for loops, and together with this range that I have explained, this is the step, this is the start, this is the stop, and this is the step. We can even decide not to put the step, and then by default it will default to 1. It will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it is starting from just 1, and then since we did not include any step to follow, it will be just 1 interval. And again, like I say, if we remove the start, it will default to 0 and then 1 interval as well. Now let's see how we can put one loop inside the other. And for that, I have a code here that I will be explained from. This is the nesting of for loops. Okay, let me remove some cells here. We want to see how we can nest, that is, put one loop inside the other. That is what we refer to as nesting. And if you see this, you can see that it is well explained with this thing, with this very line that I typed here. Now, for example, if we have this variable, this line, we are saying this list should be stored in this variable lst, and then we are storing this tuple inside this variable named tup. Now we want to loop through each of these data or each of these variables. We will loop through this list, and we will also loop through this tup. That means we are using two for loops. That takes us to how we nest it. First, we want to loop through the first line here, the first list here, which is A, B, C, and D, and then which is for this outer loop. This first line of code will go in here and pick each of the alphabets here. First, it will pick A, save it in the variable later, and then go for this second loop and ensure it exhausts all the items in this variable. That means when it picks A first, it will now come here, which is the second for loop. Now pick 1, it will be A1, go again A2, still with A, go again and pick A3. When it has exhausted this, it will now go second round for this outer loop, which is B. The next item there is B. It will choose B and then come and repeat here again 3 times, just as we define here. After exhausting this, it will now go to this one, pick C, exhaust this one, then pick D and exhaust this one. That is all. Only then it will now come out of this loop and said mission accomplished, just as we have written here. So we are going to see A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, and so on when I run this code. Now I run that. Exactly, this is the output that we see. We have this is A1, this is A2, this is A3, this is B1, B2, B3, and then after it exhausts the loop, it now said mission accomplished. So this is simplest way to nest loop for loops in Python. So you can nest as much as you can, but you have to be very careful because it can really goes really wild, that it may become difficult for you, even you, to understand your code in a few times from the moment that you write the code. Okay, moving on. Let's move on to the second type of loops that we have in Python, which is the while loop. The while loop is used to execute to execute a certain block of code for as long as a certain condition is met. And majorly we use it when we don't know the number of times we want the loop to take place. But in the for loop, we will be specified. It is specific that the kind of the number of time that it will be iterated through this item are known. Again, we use for loop for a known number of times, but the for loop we use it for an unknown number of times, and conditions has to be met in both as well. So let me demonstrate this while loop and see to make sure I explain it very well to you. Let's start with a variable called num, which I'm abbreviating it as it's supposed to be. This is a variable that represents number, because I'm storing number in it, but I'm shortening it to num, which will contain 0 first. Let's initialize it to 0. Then, and I say while you see, it's a keyword, and this is why it has turned to green. In Python, most keywords, depending on your code editor, it will definitely change color when you type any Python keyword. Now while we now say while num is less than 7, while num is less than 7, we want Python to do a specific task for us. colon. Remember the colon always, and once you see this colon and you hit enter, it will indent it by default depending on the code editor that you are using, but I'm sure most code editor out there will do this for you. If for any reason it is not indented, ensure you do that. Use tab or you press the space bar in 4 places. That is if you are using Windows. Okay, now we want Python to update the value before printing it. Let's say n, it will now be num now. For num now, we'll now say num will be num, should not be equal plus num plus equal yes, num plus equal. This abbreviation is the same thing as saying okay, let me say num plus equal 1. Now what you are seeing here is the same thing as this. Let me use it to explain. Num num equals num plus 1. This line of code here, which is num equal num plus 1, is the shortened form of this num plus equal 1. So you can decide to use this, which I believe is more faster or more short to write this long line here or something. Alright, now when you write this, and again we now said what do we want to do? We want Python to print that very number, just similar to what we did with the for loop. Print, okay, print num, and then when you have finished that, when you have finished printing num, just print let's say this time around done. Okay, print, yes, print done. Let me run that. Okay, good, it's just done. It did not print what we expected to print. Okay, what is happening here? While num is less than 7, this is where the line this mistake is coming from. Now remember, like I said earlier, it has to meet a certain condition before the loop gets executed, or before the block of codes inside the loop gets executed. Listen now, take a careful look at this line, this very part that I just highlighted. You know, this is the condition that Python will that it will check before it enters the loop, the while loop. What is happening here is that it will pick the value of this num, which is 0, and compare it to this 7. That is, it will see that is this 0 greater than 7. It is when it is greater than 7 before it will begin to do whatever we ask it to do with this block of code inside this indentation here. So this is why it skips this block of code and goes straight to print this one that is outside, this done, because this condition here is not correct. But because this is not what I actually intended, it's just a typo here. This is greater than, which is not correct. It is not a condition to be met before it can enter the loop. Therefore, it will just run this line, skip this entire 3 lines, and then go to this 5th line, this last line. So to make sure Python enters this line, this loop, and execute these two codes, we have to change this to less than sign. Yes, this less than. Now we are going to see that it's going to print somewhere from 1 to 6. Now I run that exactly. Okay, from 1 to 7, because we are updating this value here. So what it's doing here is that it will pick 0 and see that 0 is actually less than 7. What should I do next? I have to run the code as follows. Yes, it will now add 0 plus 1, which is now 1. It will pick right, then print out the 1 here. Go back again with the updated value, which is now 1, and check to see that it is actually less than 7 again. Then it will add 1 to this 1, which is 2 now. Then print the 2 here, and then go back again to say that 2 now is actually less than 7. Now it will do the same by updating it with 1 before printing it. So if you want to see that, you can now see that it starts from 1 and reach 7. But if we want to get another clear understanding of it, we can remove this line that updates it, or let me just still put it in a comment block and then run the code. Okay, we have now entered the that is good. We have entered an infinite loop. somehow sometime you might come across this. To get out of this infinite loop, you will need to either press Ctrl C, continue to press Ctrl C until you get out of it, or if you are using Jupyter Notebook like I'm doing here, you can simply come to this place, this kernel, and then do it like this, either interrupt or shut down or restart. So I'm going to click on this restart and clear all outputs to make sure I get out of the loop. Now I'll click here, restart, and then clear all outputs. I'll wait a minute. Now it's back. So this is how you do when you get into an infinite loop. Now to make our code more correct, I'll pick this line, or let me write this very line that I annotated here, and copy that, place it below here, below this line. Ctrl V. Now I'll run the code and everything will go normal. Now it starts at 0 and end at 6. This is because before the line that updates it, we instruct Python to print it first. That is, show us the value that you have in the num before you print it, or before you even before you update it, show us first or print it to us first. That is why when you picked 0, it will compare it to 7, that yes, it's actually less than 7. Then what should I do with it? We say print it. That is why we see 0. Then what next? Update it. That is 0 plus 1 now will now be 1. It is this one, the updated or the latest value of this num, that will now be compared with this 7 to see that it is actually less than 7 again. That is 1 is now is less than 7. Then enter, print it, update it, go with the update, which is 2 now, less than 7. Okay, print it, update it, go again until it reaches 7. Now, the reason we are not seeing 7 here, earlier we see 7 when we switch this line of code here. Now we are not seeing 7 again. The reason is that when it goes with this latest value, which is 6, it will compare that 6 is less than 7. It will print it and then update it to 7. That is, add 1 to 6, which is 7. It now go and see that 7 now is not less than 7. Therefore, it gets out of the while command and then print this done. So if you want to ensure that 7 is outputted with this same format, you can put an equal sign here, less than or equal to, and then it will be it will bring 7 for you. Yes, this is how we write less than or equal to in Python, as against the usual less than or equal to that we have. So the next, now moving on, you see we have to let's take a look at some commands that we can use to execute while to interrupt with our while or for loops. We have some command like the continue, break, and pass. These are commands that we can use to control how our loops behave. The continue statement will tell Python to stop executing the rest of the commands for the current iteration, and then it will skip to the next iteration. That is, for example, let me use our previous code to explain that again, or we can simply write another code, but I'll go ahead and use this previous line here. Okay, let me see the perfect line that will make this more interesting. Okay, let me write out another line so I'll explain more. All right, let's say we have let's say our x, name our variable x to be equals to let's name it having some numbers like this in tuple. Let's enclose that in tuple, and we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. This is how to define tuple in Python, closing some items in a round bracket. Now, okay, we'll now save. Let's use for loop to demonstrate how we can interrupt our loop with some commands. Let's say for x, okay, let's say for n in x, yes, now put again colon. This is how to write for loop like we said earlier. For n in s, if n equals 5, for example, another colon again, like as we know, then break, continue. Let's start with continue. Okay, of course when it changes, no, continue. and then print, let's say print n, right? If n is equal to this, print n, good, print n, and then get out of this. Yes, I mean we now want Python to get out of this loop and then print the word done for us. Print finished. Let's say finished. Print finished. Now if I run this, when it's choosing these items one after the other, putting it in this variable and comparing or checking to see whether this statement is true. Remember, we have the true and then the false, which are the Boolean value that we've discussed in some of my videos out there. You can check it out. It will be comparing these values that is stored in this variable n to see whenever it gets to 5, it will execute this line, which is continue. You can see continue as simply saying skip and then go to the next one. That is, when it gets to 5, it will skip it and go to this line, next one, which is 6 and then 7. That means it is working one by one with these values, this item that we have indicated here, picking one and putting it, picking them one by one and putting it in this variable, then comparing them with 5 to see whenever I get to 5 and then execute this line, then execute this line. So when I run this code now, we are not going to see 5 there because of this condition that we have indicated. Let me run that and explain exactly. We always see from 1 to 7, then finished. It is comparing each value stored in n to see that whenever it gets to 5, it will skip it and then go to the next one, which is 6. It will do what we say here, which is print, and then do what we say here, which is print as well. This is very powerful when you want to make some decisions, like as we discussed earlier in some of my video out there, and in your code, in real application or application of it can come up, and you need to know what to do at that particular time. Watch some of my video out there, and you understand more of what I mean and where exactly how to apply them. Now the next one I want to talk about is break. In the break command, we'll simply leave the loop prematurely. That is, it will stop and never execute the remaining iteration. It will skip the remaining iteration and leave the loop entirely. What do I mean? Now let me demonstrate that with some example as well, and at the same time I'll just copy this line of code and paste it here to demonstrate that. Now when you get to 5, I want to use the command here, break command here, break. Now what that means that when it gets to 1, it will be 1 2 3 4 5, and then it will break at 5. That it will not even print 5, neither 6 nor 7. It will only be 1 2 3 4. Let me run that and see. Okay, yes, good. It is correct. It's just print 1 2 3 4. When it gets to 5, break, that is, get out of the loop. And then when it gets out of the loop, remember the next line we ask it to execute is this line, print finish, and this is why we are seeing this line here. If we include this line in the loop, it will not be executed. That is, if for any reason we decided to take this one and let me say Ctrl C and then paste it here, like, okay, no need, let me just indent it. For example, if we just indent it like this line will not be printed, this finish, because when you get to 5, it will just break and there's nothing to print. So this is how we we use the break command to get out of the loop. Even this break command can be used sometimes when you find yourself in or to make sure your code get out of infinite loop by default. That means when you write a program and you don't want it to get into infinite loop, you can use the break as a setting condition, as a setting place that you want it to get out of. Now the third command that I want to talk about is pass. We use the pass statement to make Python to just skip or to just pass by. That is, it doesn't do anything at that moment. Pass is used when we want our code to be syntactically correct. That is, if we, for example, when we are defining function and at that moment we don't know what we want to do inside the function, you can simply use pass, so that next time you come and then you replace that pass with a code. Again, you can just see pass as a placeholder, so that you can be thinking at other things else. So when you come back, you can replace it with something. Now let me explain that using this line of code again and see what happened. Now I'll paste it here and then use the word break here again. We use pass here now. Pass. When you get to 5, pass. That means don't do anything. And if it is not doing anything, of course, you'll be expecting to print both 5 and the remaining ones. That is, you print from 1 to 4 and check at 5. See that what should I do? We say don't do anything. That means it will print to continue doing what it has been doing. Of course, we'll be expecting then 1 to 7. Around that, yes, correct. 1 to 7. The 5 is being printed because we always say it will just not do anything. I hope you have well knowledge about how to perform loop in Python now. In my subsequent video or in some of my videos out there, you can see how I use them and execute some actions. And by now, now that you are familiar with it, that is very good. I'm very happy for that. Just go ahead and be practicing it in your code editor. It does not matter whatever code editor you use. Ensure what you are doing is correct. Thank you and bye for now.